Welcome to the Tradie Wife Life podcast, brought to you by Tradies in Business, where we talk to tradie wives about their goals, their challenges, their hopes and dreams, and how their trade business can help with that. Hello, listeners, and welcome back to Tradie Wife Life. I'm joined by another one of our real tradie wives, and a bloody legend at that, Samara Trethowan from Trethowan Building, which she shares with her husband, Liam. You've been working with us since July 2020, but that's not all there is to your story. You've got a huge story, very interesting one. We've just spent 20 minutes off air here having a chat about your life prior to working with your husband in Trethowan Building. Samara, thank you for being here. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to be a tradie wife?
Yes, of course. Thanks for having me, Nick.
Pleasure.
So I have, so our business is nearly 7 years old, and I joined our business just on the same time we joined TIB. So before that, I was a veterinary nurse for 14 years, finished high school, did a year of beauty therapy, definitely wasn't for me. And it had always been my other option to go to Melbourne, study veterinary nursing. So I did that for 14 years, worked my way up to be head nurse, took on a practice management position. While I was in that role, Liam also started our business. And at the time, I really didn't want any part of the business. It wasn't where my passion was, and it was sort of his own venture, and we were very happy with that. And I did happen to do though all of the payroll and bookkeeping and stuff like that, because I was already doing that for my job in my management role. And then obviously COVID happened. I was managing a new startup clinic, and we live on the border of New South Wales and Victoria, and the highway that joins our two towns is the only highway between Melbourne and Sydney. So it was a really hard, stressful time. What would usually take me 7 minutes to get to work was taking over 2 hours, just with army, patrol, all of that, cross-border permits and stuff like that. I got to a point where I was burnt out. I was missing my family. I only got to see my kids for 30 minutes a day, working 15-hour days, and it was just sort of come to a point where I was burnt out, and we needed an adjustment. The life that we weren't living was not what we had envisioned for ourselves, and I had started to take a bit more of an interest in all the problems, or I guess fire spotting that was happening within the business, for things that I was already had experience dealing with. So collectively we made a decision that for the time it was definitely where we wanted to head.
It's interesting that you raise that it's not your passion, or at least it wasn't your passion. I've still yet to meet somebody that, a tradie wife essentially, that has come into the business because that's their passion. It's something that we all fall into, right?
No, I did. I fell into it because, and like I said, I was not going to, at the time, I didn't want to leave my career. I'd worked really, really hard to get to the position that I was in, and I didn't want to sort of throw that away for, it wasn't just Liam's dream. It was something that we always knew that he wanted to do, be a custom residential builder. But at that time, I wasn't ready to give up what was important to me.
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic point that you raise. And something I've seen lots of women struggle with, and quite often it comes down to that decision of balance for our families. And so I know for myself, I won't put words in your mouth. For me, when I made the decision to start helping out, as we do, with our business, I almost felt like, I don't know, there was a bit of resentment. I felt like, well, I'll make the sacrifice then for our family so I could be here for the kids, even though I wanted to be here for the children, of course. And I still felt like I was giving up something that I'd spent the last 15 odd years creating for myself. Like, much like you, I'd gone to positions within my career that were unusual for my skill set. And I don't know, I really found that hard to let it go. Was that something that you feel you had in common, Samara? Was it hard to let go of the career that you'd built?
It was. At the time, it took me quite a long time to I guess, make the final, not, I guess, and still to this day, it's not going, might not be a forever thing, but at the time it was hard to make the decision to finally sort of let go. Before I decided to step away from what I was doing and join our business full time, I actually took a stint in public relations for Australia's largest pet food manufacturing company. And when I did that, it was sort of like a little toe step in the water that I was safe to do so. I found it very hard. I'd always identified myself as, I am a veterinary nurse. It's not what I do. So when I stepped away, I felt like I did have a slight identity crisis that, it was, it's hard to describe. It wasn't like that I was losing my passion, but I was losing part of myself. I was very, very proud of the work that I did. And, it was almost like I wore a badge of honor. The hours I worked. And look, to be honest, now I look back and I shouldn't be so proud to be working 15 hours and not having a lunch break and haven't gone to the toilet or that type of stuff. But I really did struggle with finding my new self and having who I was within our business, that, from letting go to what I was doing.
So how did that change for you? Because in talking to you before we went live and knowing you as well as we do, I don't see that identity crisis anymore. I see someone who's very sure about who they are and knows their place within the world and is very comfortable with that. So what changed for you?
I did a lot of personal work, to be honest, and I think it came back to realizing my own values and what the life that Liam and I wanted to create together for our family and how we were going to make that happen. We've worked incredibly hard in our 20s to get where we are now, and to come back to, I'm really comfortable with where I am in my life. I don't like being center of attention. And so for me, I'm very happy to take a step back and work hard for what's important to us and work for, I guess, the things that we want to do in life with our children and be a role model for them and inspire them in what I do now. And that was something that I really struggled with, because our daughter, I mean, she didn't really have a choice. She was forced to love animals. When you're bringing abandoned kittens home to hand rear and you've got wildlife that are in your backyard because whatever instance and stuff like that. But, she was always saying, I want to be a veterinary nurse. I want to be a vet, all of those type of things. And it was like, when I made that decision to step away, it was like, well, how am I going to inspire her? Like I've become, I feel like she's losing a role model. But, there's other ways that I obviously, as a mum, hopefully I'll always be her best role model. But, there's other ways to inspire her of things that I enjoy and passions outside of my career, not who I was. That was, when I needed to change that mindset from working from what I do to what my position is. Yeah,
it's a big shift, isn't it? So, Mara, do you see what you're doing now as a career?
Yes and no. I feel there are times where, not all the time I feel it as a career. Sometimes I have that little shift in mind that it's, I'm kind of treading water, and that scares me a lot. I hate being stagnant in anything career-wise or anything like that. But I also feel like as a career-wise, it's something that Liam and I are building together. So there's still lots of, I guess, previous career experience I have that I bring to our business. And I mean, I've gone back to study this year, which will continue to do anything for our business. Yes, it directly is involved, but will I bring it into the business? I have no idea. But again, it was more the stagnant. I don't like to just be treading water. I like to be growing constantly. Yeah.
I love that. I think it's really important. It's something we tend to let go of, and yet all of this can be true. We can have a career within a career. Even myself, I've had maybe 4 different careers. My time, I am a fair bit older than you, Samara. Yes, I've had 4 different careers so far, and I don't know, there won't be more to come at some point. And within each, whilst to go back to that word of passion, not all of them have been my passion. I still
Mhm.
can't say I was super passionate about being a builder's wife, but what I did find passion in were parts of what I was doing. So, similar to you, the interior stuff, that I was really passionate about that. So I was able to
Mhm.
carve out something particular for me within the business while helping grow the business to a point that I didn't have to play such a foundational role in it anymore.
Mhm.
And now I love what I do now. This is very different again. This would probably, no, it definitely is my most favorite incarnation of my career.
Mhm.
But even back to pharmacy, there were parts of that I didn't like. I had to focus on the bits that I did like. And I think for many women considering joining their partners in their trade businesses, this can be really confronting, not knowing how I'm still going to be the person that I've always been and not just drawn into the big mess that can become being in a relationship, having family together, working together, the stresses that come with a business. It can be really hard to see your way clear and think, okay, no, I still have a career here. There's part of
Yeah.
this that I can find passion for and I can enjoy. It's probably not going to be data entry for those of you listening. Although some of us like it. I think, Samara, you're one of the ones that really
I
enjoy
do.
it.
I love it, and it's something that we've talked a lot about this in depth, about handing this over to a bookkeeper. But I really enjoy data entry, back costing, all of the ins and outs of the financial sides. Yes, I could be finding way more valuable things to do with my time in the business, but I love it.
You got to stick to what you love. There's going to be something there that drives a bit of passion for you. Samara, can you tell us about the early days when you first stepped in? So you were already doing some of the bookwork, you were doing the data entry, and you were running payroll.
Yeah.
What else did you start doing when you first stepped away from your career as a veterinary nurse and then started working with Liam together side by side? What did that look like?
So when I first, it was a little, it was messy, won't lie. So when I came in, I guess, full time into the business, there was Liam and we had 3 other employees. And there was not a lot of systems. There was no procedures. There was no, a lot of the time they were just winging everything. Liam was putting out fires left, right, and centre. He was already off the tools by then, but it just procedural. There was no. Now I look back, I'm like, oh my goodness, that was scary, wasn't it? It was a very hard time. Yeah, there was, no sales process. There was no preliminary processes, and we had some really hard times. We lost some really, really big jobs and put us in really scary financial positions. So at that time, it was sort of, I came in, and not everyone's passion. I love creating. I'm very much a, straight line, black and white type of person. So for me, it was about creating procedures, creating, a step-by-step of how we're going to do these things so that it becomes like second nature, that when we get an inquiry, this is what we do. When we proceed with that inquiry, and this is what we're going to do next with a sales process. Was it always that fun? No. But I knew that were the things that I needed to step in with Liam and some of our management, that they were really critical for us to sort of be identified as the builders that we wanted to be in our area and to create the name. And I mean, the jobs that we deliver are incredibly high spec, and so we wanted to make sure that process started from the start, that it followed the whole way through. Yeah.
Have you found that it had, I guess, navigating those early waters, and you have a beautiful relationship with Liam. You guys are really connected. You get along really well. I love our sessions because you both make me laugh, particularly when you're telling each other off. But what I find often is in those early days, trying to navigate the newness of being in business together and being a partnership can be really challenging, because we have to create boundaries that we've not had to worry about before. We have to learn new communication styles. There's so many skills actually we have to learn to navigate through that first early bit. Did you find it put a strain on your relationship, or was that something you were able to work your way through relatively easily?
It had moments of strain. I feel like majority of the time it's been quite okay. We have boundaries that we don't really talk about work at home, purely because we're both in the office together and we talk about work all day. We don't want to come home and then talk about it again. We both have separate passions outside of work, so out of business. So that was probably the first thing for us, is that we want to continue who we are as individuals, obviously in a relationship and now at that time in a business. So for that was probably the first thing, was that, there might be a couple of little conversations, but it wasn't the whole offloading when you get home, because our home is our safe place. It's, where we want to come home and relax and have our own downtime. At the office, we're very much not husband and wife. We are colleagues, so we have a lot of respect for each other within the office. We don't argue. Obviously we treat each other the same as what we would treat our employees. So for us, it was about, creating and making sure that we keep ourselves in check of, because obviously your husband and wife is going through those little times when you're like, oh my goodness, he's annoying me so much. Like, and I'll tell Liam instantly, if he's annoying me, it's out of my mouth before he's even finished his sentence. And he's very much the same. Yeah. I mean, we keep ourselves accountable. We keep each other accountable for our own actions, behaviors, that type of stuff. And I think, for Liam and I, we're very equals in our relationship. No one wears the pants, and we're both very headstrong, so neither of us would allow the other to wear the pants. I think it's always a constant work as well. It's, it's not just going to be, it's easy all the time to be a business owner and be husband and wife. We always have to constantly work at that. Same as marriage is not always easy. Business ownership is not always easy. So there's always going to be, periods of high stress and, making sure we don't bring that home, or we don't, take that out at the office and, create a horrible environment for, us and our other employees. I think it's for us just trying to be mindful of who we are and how we communicate to each other.
Yeah, totally. Samara, you mentioned systems earlier, and I really get what you were saying. It triggered so many memories for me. When I started working in the business, we'd just finished going through an audit process within the health system for pharmacy. Everything's really tightly regulated. And so we'd had auditors through to check everything. So that was our systems, our procedures, all of the stuff that should be happening more often in construction, but does not yet. So I remember walking in, and it was exactly the same as you described. It's all ad hoc. There were spotlights everywhere. It was just a mess. It did my head in, and it made it really hard for me to figure out where I could make the biggest impact straight away. So let's talk about systems. They're like the holy grail in business, and people often don't know what they are. They just know they're going to fix things. But I'd love your take on what systemizing your business has meant for you, and maybe some examples of some systems that have really driven some fantastic changes or results for you.
And that was when I first stepped in. There was no systems, literally nothing. And so when I came on board, it was sort of like, where do I fit? How do I help? How do I do anything? How can I assist, our interior designer? How can I assist Liam? There was literally nothing. And it was virtually, I kind of just had to step back, and I was like a shadow, because I just had to sort of wing it for the first little while I was there, until I could develop and learn how that they were winging it. And then it became a collective. We worked together to develop. We essentially, I guess, brainstormed all of the things that we needed to do right then and there that were causing us the energy and the time that we didn't need to be spending. So that all happened. That was fantastic. And that was just sort of like your literal, how do we do this? Where do we do this? Or that type of stuff. The biggest things for us was creating a sales process. And part of that was our preliminary agreement with our clients. So essentially what we would have been doing was designing, doing all of this work for a very minimal scary fee when I look back at it now. We were essentially working for free
Mm-hmm.
for a really long time. And there was no obligation for them to continue, which there still isn't. But we custom design all our floor plans. Everything is designed around the client's needs, wants, budget. And yeah, we had some very incredibly large projects that used our floor plans and took them to another builder.
Oh, that hurts.
It was really, it was really, really scary. And not only did it, Liam took that so hard, because obviously he's poured his entire he wears his heart on his sleeve. So, you know, his heart and soul was in that design of that project. And yeah, so that was really hard for us. We had already, I guess, put that into our future schedule. And that was, you know, like 9 to 10 months of schedule that gone instantly. And obviously cash flow, all of those things. And that was really, really scary. I remember going into that Christmas, and yeah, I was terrified of how we were going to get through our lockdown or close down period over the Christmas holidays, and not knowing how we're going to pay our employees over that period of time. That was terrifying. Yeah.
Really scary. And yet your sales process, we utilize the results that change for you guys in your sales process whenever we do a webinar around the impact of a sales process, because they're outstanding, and you only had to make a few small changes to create a massive shift for you and your business. I think at the time, now the stats were, you were running at about 45 to 50% on your conversion rate. And last we checked with you, you were between 85 and 95%.
Yeah.
I never say 100% because, you know, people won't believe me if I tell them it's 100% anyway. But you are converting nearly all of the people that you work through that proposal process with. And it was only a few small changes that meant that you were able to do that. And I really want to highlight and point out, not only are you converting nearly everybody, you're also being paid for most of the time and the work and the professional services that you have involved in creating that process for them. It's not, like you said, stringing yourselves out to dry, doing all of that work for next to nothing, if not nothing, and potentially losing the plans to another builder anyway. So if you're listening to this and you're considering being part of your business systems, really are the holy grail. Yes, they're hard to identify or understand. And essentially it's just, you can start with understanding what you're doing now. We all have the unknown systems. So we talk as a sales process, quite often it's answer the phone, run out that afternoon to do the quote, give a verbal, you get an acceptance, you go and do the job, you invoice. If that's what you're doing right now, that's version 1. And you can write that down, and that's where we start from. We just add in bits and pieces from there. It really is a valuable place where you can add that value, but also find some satisfaction in what you're able to do in your role if you're just stepping in. So please give that a bit of a thought. Systems is something I'm very passionate about, Samara. However, you and Liam have some really interesting outside passions that you both spend a fair bit of time in. Not only do you support each other in doing so, you've created space within your family life and your professional life for this to actually happen. So it's a deal breaker for it not to happen. This is something that is consistent for both of you. And it has, for listeners, we're talking to Samara at a really nice part of their journey. It hasn't always been like this. They've had to work really, really hard to get it to this point. So I don't want you to sit and listen and dismiss or to think it's easy. Neither are true. The opportunity here is for you to understand that with hard work, we can create the results that you're looking for. And that's something that Liam and Samara have done really well together. But let's talk about your passions. And I know lots of our tradie wives or tradie partners will be listening in today and thinking, or being reminded about how hard their husbands are working and how stressed they are and how much of an issue cash flow is. And, you know, all of those really hard stress points, they're probably arguing, fighting. There's no time for the kids, all that stuff that feels really negative. And yet you guys, I don't think were ever quite in that full position. You certainly had a lot of stresses that you had to deal with. Been some very hard times for each of you individually and as business owners. And we've reached this point finally now, I think for all of this year, maybe a little bit of last year as well, where you guys have two or an individual passion each that you're supporting each other to enjoy. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, of course. So Liam is a massive and avid golf player. He started playing golf when he was about 12 or 13, and like Liam to a T, is very good at everything that he just naturally does, and it's very frustrating actually that he's just naturally talented at everything. And yeah, he went on to represent New South Wales in golf, and after high school it stopped. He put the what do I call it, club down, and that was it. And then it has been something that he has mentioned over the years that he'd really like to get back into, and we couldn't facilitate the time. It was just something that, I want to do that, but how do we make that happen with the hours that he was working, the hours I was working, having two really young children, and at the time it just wasn't something that you could justify. I think when you talk about a passion, you always sort of, it's so important and you love it, but I think it's always at the back of your mind saying, oh, can I justify taking the time away to do this? So over the time, probably I think it's probably the last 8 to 10 months, it's become a non-negotiable for Liam. And we've created space within our business now that he has a Wednesday. That's where he might work for maybe an hour in the morning, just to have a quick check-in with the team, and he's gone. That's it. He's gone for the whole day. And that's his day. He goes to golf. He loves golf with all his heart. And it's the only thing he talks about when he gets home. He tells me almost every single hole about how he putted this, or he got a double bogey, or he didn't, or he got I can't even tell you, I'm so sorry. All of the golf terms I should know, it gets repeated multiple times. But yeah, like it's become something that has, outside of work, so important to him. He's a social butterfly, so he loves to socialize. Obviously he's also networking. That's also important for him. He's the total opposite to me. So that's his passions all in one: socializing, networking, and playing golf. So and he was playing twice a week in comp. He represented our local golf club. He was selected to do all of that. So for him, he's also getting self-satisfaction of outside of our business as well. It's
fantastic that he's able to take a Wednesday. He did get a few coach slaps to get him to that point. It was hard for him to let it go, wasn't it? It was it's a challenge, because even though we so deeply want it, particularly for the tradies, they have a deep sense of you have to work harder to make more money, or for the business to be more successful, or to have the jobs delivered on time. And it's not actually true. If we're not taking that time out, we might have had a few pressure points that meant that this lesson was driven home for everyone. But if we don't take that time out, unfortunately, we can't give our best to our business. We can't give our best to our team or our partners or our children. And so I really wanted to talk about that today, because I think it highlights that there is an opportunity with some hard work for you to create that space for yourselves as well. And let's not forget I think you've got two passions though. It's not just netball, but it's also your commitment to your personal training. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think, or I don't want to get it wrong, probably is a better way to put it. You're working towards some pretty serious goals in terms of your lifting and your strength training.
Yeah. So that was something that has come about probably the last 2 years. And when I was younger, I played a lot of high competitive netball. I was, in the academy, I was 15 playing A grade Ovens and Murray netball. I was coached by some of, state. I look back now and I think of the opportunities that were in front of me. Some of these coaches are still coaching Suncorp netball now, and I just think of how fortunate I was to have that exposure. And I played a lot of netball, was my passion. Then I lost that passion because I was in so deep. We were, when you're in academy, you're trialing for state, you're being driven around the state literally every weekend for competitions. We were under, sports medicine doctors. It was very high pressure, and I lost my passion because it just wasn't fun anymore. It was about constantly being your best. You had to be your best at all times. And it was hard at, 15, 16 to not deliver to the expectations of, your coach or, all those type of things, your nutritionist, that type of stuff. And that was a lot of pressure at 16, and I lost that. Picked it up again in my early 20s. And then I had a really horrific ankle injury and had to have an ankle reconstruction. I did put that off for a little while. And then a couple of, probably, 2 years ago, I decided that I want to go back. I'm going to get to an age where I regret not having that time to come back and enjoy it just for the sport that it is. And that was important for me to have a passion outside of our business, because that was sort of the same time that I had left nursing. Obviously, that was my whole identity, and that was part of me having to come back to think of what do I love. And I love being physically active. I love lots of sports, but netball for me is, I breathe netball. That's my whole, but it was, my body wasn't in it at a position to just walk back in and play. So I had to spend quite a lot of time getting my body physically ready for the next season. So going to the gym, and I have worked really, really hard over the last sort of 2 years to I lift some really, I'm really proud of what I lift, when you're looking at like 70, 80, 90 kilo deadlifts, and I've had to work through injuries to continue that. And even coming from a part where, you no longer have motivation, you do it because you're disciplined, and at the end of the day that no one's going to do the hard work for you. Like, you have to get out of bed. I get out of bed at 5 o'clock, and I hate mornings. Like, I am not a morning person. No. Oh my goodness, I have to remind myself that no one else is going to do the work for me. Like, if I want to do this, then I have to do the hard work. Liam was always like, he's never pushy, but he's like, oh, you're going to go? Like, you're going to, and he's always sort of gives me like, that, like, you're going to not be happy with yourself later if you don't. I'm like, I know, okay. And like, he's a morning person. So for him to get out of bed, like, it's just like he gets out and it's easy. Whereas I'm like, oh, I've got to press snooze for a couple of times. And then it's sort of like, just need that little bit of time to wake up. But coming back to something that was so important to me at a time, whereas now I can come back and I enjoy it for the sport that it is. I still have a lot of pressure on my own shoulders. No one else puts the pressure on me, it's me. But I've really enjoyed being back.
You said one thing in there that really was almost triggering for me. I decided I wanted to go back to play netball. I played as a kid, nothing like you at all. I just played. It was just fun for me. And by the time I figured out I wanted to play, I think I've told you this before, we went back playing mixed netball, indoor netball, and just ended up riddled with injuries, like work-stopping injuries. So I really resonate with the two things there. One, doing it before you reach that age where it's you can't enjoy it anymore. It's not fun anymore. And two, preparing yourself, because we missed that step completely. Went out running around, and no wonder we ended up with injuries. But I would also like to highlight that you guys, there's not just the two of you. You're a family. You've got two young kids as well, and you're working really hard on these commitments that you're making, not only to each other, but your family, to ensure that business is business. And yes, you do need to work hard when you're at work. However, it's creating that flexibility for you so that you've got time to spend with the kids. Can you tell us a bit about how that balance, or trying to find that balance, has been for you?
At the start, it wasn't easy. And a lot of the time before I joined the business, Liam and I were very much, like two ships passing in the night. I was working incredibly long hours. I was, at work at 7 a.m. I'd get home sometimes at 8 or 9 at night. And, depending on what shift I was on, I might drop the kids at daycare for that morning. So I might see them for 45 minutes and Liam would put them to bed, or vice versa. So that was really hard. And part of my reason why I decided to, join our business full time was that I was missing out on the best years of our children's lives. And it came to a point, it was sort of like, well, I'm not even here to enjoy them when, you know, I'm missing out on everything. There's no opportunity in the industry that, you know, in the vet industry to just duck out to go to, you know, a preschool presentation, or Charlotte was just starting kindergarten, her first year of school. And it was like, I never can just quickly duck out. You know, you're in the middle of a cesarean, or there's, you know, emergencies. And it was just, those were the things that really scared me, that I was missing out. And I don't want to see these things secondhand.
Yeah.
And I don't want to see a photo of my daughter up there if she got an award, or like, I want to see her firsthand.
Yeah.
And for her and Will, our son, it was very much that we weren't living as a family. We were just two, mum and dad, and we had some kids. That's how it felt. That we weren't living in a functional, easy, you know, weekends. We were exhausted. So when we made that decision that this is how we're going to do it, this is the lifestyle we want to live, we want to enjoy our weekends with our kids, and, you know, go on little family trips, and, you know, actually experience, you know, take them on experiences, see things with them. So yeah, that was, how did we do it? I guess it became like, what do we want from, you know, a change in, you know, my career, and essentially is like our lifestyle, our family unit, how are we going to get there? And it was sort of, again, what are the things that we enjoy? What are the things our kids enjoy? And one of those things was, like, we love going fishing. And for us, that was really important. Like, the kids absolutely love it when we go out on the boat, and, you know, it might only last an hour before they're a bit bored, but, you know, we get there. And I think it was also just the, what are the things that they love to do, because obviously we love doing whatever, you know, they love, and that it became important. And some days, like on weekends, even after school, that type of stuff, you know, it's just always having time. We'll quickly grab a milkshake, or you know, that we might go to the bakery, get a donut and a custard tart. Like, there are the things that our kids remember. It's not there. Yeah, that was what became really important to us, that we're creating memories. It's not just mum and dad did this, or like,
I think you're also, so maybe to talk back to earlier where you were mentioning that Charlotte, you want to continue to be an inspiration for her. And I see that very much from my very privileged position of watching your family interact when we're on coaching calls. And I think you're really setting that example to them. Not only are you working really hard as a couple in business, you're seeking that outside passion and support for who you are as a person. And then you're stepping up to the plate and doing extra education in whatever that form that looks like. I think that's a fantastic example to be setting for the kids, and a great way for them to grow up understanding, you know, that ethic of working hard and what it can create for a family, where I see often that kids are shielded from that as well. They don't understand. Then there's a real disconnect between not seeing mum and dad and I have this lovely lifestyle, and I don't really understand how that's come to be. So yeah, kudos to the two of you for working really hard to involve them in what you're doing as well. I think it's really important. They're good kids. They make me smile.
Thank you.
It's much easier from my side of the screen.
Yes, sometimes.
Samara, it's been absolutely fantastic. Thank you for sharing so much with us today. If our listeners would like to find out more about you and Liam and what you guys are up to, where can they find you?
So they can find us on Instagram at Trethowan Building, and they can also find us on Facebook, same Trethowan Building, and also our website, which is just www.trethowanbuilding.com.
I'll make sure all of those links are in the show notes for you listeners. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure.